It's a provocative statement, sure, but not because of its imagery. It's provocative because it forces us to ask, what happens when authority over the human mind is never questioned? If we strip away ceremony, tradition, and the comforting stories we've inherited, religion is essentially a framework for control. It tells people what is true before they've had the chance to think for themselves. It rewards obedience and punishes curiosity. And when enough people are living by unquestionable rules, you end up with a society that moves, not toward progress, but toward the preservation of a very specific worldview, even if that worldview keeps the entire civilization in chains. The idea that religion is the glue holding society together is one of its oldest defenses. Without it, the argument goes, morality collapses, lawlessness takes over, and chaos reigns. But history paints a different picture. Some of humanity's worst atrocities, inquisitions, witch trials, religious wars, weren't the result of moral decay. They were the product of moral certainty, the kind that leaves no room for dissent or nuance. When someone believes they have divine approval for their actions, they will commit horrors without a flicker of doubt. Even today, religion shapes laws that affect billions, often with consequences that directly harm human welfare. In some countries, outdated religious laws dictate who you can marry, what you can wear, even whether you can speak your mind without risking prison or death. Globally, we still see policies on reproductive rights, education, and scientific research dictated not by evidence, but by scripture. Civilization thrives on open debate, testing ideas, and adapting to new information. Religion, by design, resists this. It locks moral codes into texts written centuries ago and declares them untouchable. There's also the matter of intellectual stagnation. When questions about the universe are answered with, "because it's God's will," inquiry stops. And when inquiry stops, so does innovation. In the Middle Ages, the Church held a monopoly over learning in Europe. Scientific exploration that threatened theological doctrine was not just discouraged, it was dangerous. This is not a unique period in history. Even now, there are places where research is censored or outright banned if it contradicts religious orthodoxy. A civilization that cannot challenge its own assumptions will eventually choke on them. Religious influence also exploits one of the most powerful drivers of human behavior, group identity. People naturally form in-groups and out-groups, but religion amplifies this division by claiming divine endorsement for one group's values over another's. It's not just us versus them. It becomes us, chosen by God, versus them, rejected by God. That mindset doesn't just fuel wars and terrorism, it erodes empathy in everyday life. You see it when people refuse to work with, befriend, or even listen to those outside their faith. The economic cost is harder to see, but just as damaging. When resources are poured into the preservation of religious power, extravagant temples, tax exemptions, political lobbying, that's money not spent on healthcare, education, or infrastructure. In some nations, religious organizations hold staggering wealth, while communities within sight of their headquarters live in poverty. A civilization that tolerates this imbalance while preaching charity is not just hypocritical, it's sabotaging itself. Psychologically, religion instills obedience from the earliest possible age. Children are taught, often before they can read, that authority must be trusted without question, and that doubt is a personal failing. That training doesn't disappear when they grow up. It shapes voters, jurors, leaders, people who accept authority without demanding evidence. And that creates a population ripe for manipulation, not only by religious leaders but by any figure who claims moral certainty. What's particularly dangerous is how religion survives by adapting just enough to avoid extinction while keeping its core power structure intact. It can absorb scientific discoveries, reframe them as compatible with faith, and continue to claim ultimate authority. This camouflage makes it harder for people to see its influence as a problem. You can modernize the rituals, soften the language, make it seem more inclusive. But as long as the foundation rests on unchallengeable dogma, it will resist the kind of cultural evolution that keeps civilizations healthy. Some argue that religion inspires art, music, and acts of compassion. And yes, those exist. But they're not unique to religion, nor do they require it. Compassion comes from empathy, which is a human capacity, not a religious one. Art flourishes wherever there is imagination and expression, not just in cathedrals or mosques. The problem is that religion claims ownership of these human achievements, as if we wouldn't care for each other or create beauty without divine permission. That narrative downplays the natural human drive to connect, help, and create. And perhaps the most under-discussed way religion undermines civilization is by offering easy answers to complex problems. The world is full of difficult questions about ethics, governance, and the limits of human responsibility. Religion often replaces the struggle to find nuanced solutions with a simple, "because this is what God commands." This shortcut feels satisfying in the moment, but it denies us the deeper work of building moral systems that can adapt to new challenges. Consider how this plays out in global crises. Climate change, for example, is not addressed in any ancient scripture. Yet religious denialism has slowed meaningful action, with some leaders dismissing the threat entirely because they believe the fate of the earth is preordained. This is not just passive neglect. It's active sabotage of our ability to respond to urgent, civilization-level dangers. None of this means that people who hold religious beliefs are inherently bad or incapable of kindness. The danger lies in the system, not every individual within it. A person can be generous and loving while also participating in a structure that spreads harm, just as someone can be a skilled engineer while working for a company that pollutes rivers. The difference is that with religion, the harm is often invisible to those inside the system because it's framed as moral good. The measure of a healthy civilization isn't whether it can keep traditions alive, it's whether it can discard them when they no longer serve the well-being of its people. Religion, as an institution, is built to preserve itself at all costs. It has no expiration date, no mechanism for self-termination, no internal way of saying, "we were wrong." That's why it survives, not because it is true, but because it's designed to be unkillable. If civilization is to endure and grow, it has to outpace the forces that hold it back. That doesn't just mean building better technology or stronger economies. It means nurturing a culture where no idea is immune to question, where authority is earned and temporary, and where morality is built from evidence of what actually helps people live better lives. Religion, with its ancient roots and unyielding doctrines, will always pull in the opposite direction. The real threat isn't that religion exists, it's that it demands to rule. And every time we let it, we trade the future for the past.